I would say like 5 or 10 minutes about it, no more than this. And from time to time, I'm gonna ask you to stop a little so that I can do the translation. Is that okay
Okay,
for you?
fine.
Okay, so
So
go ahead.
I have been a furniture maker for almost 50 years, making a living for almost 50 years. And I make quite high-end furniture, complicated furniture, lots of shape and curves, and with inlay, not always, but often. And I've been lucky enough to support my family. I have 5 children and a wife, and she works, but she's an artist, and artists never make that much. But all the children have left. So it's just my wife and I've got a beautiful shop that I work in. I'll take a little walk around.
Ok? Então, pessoal, aliás, eu vou pedir a vocês que, à medida que a nossa conversa aqui for se desenvolvendo, podem colocar as perguntas no chat, aí depois a gente volta e apresenta todas as perguntas que vocês tiverem ao Garrett. Pois bem, ele é marceneiro há mais de 50 anos, né? E, na realidade, ele é não só marceneiro, mas também um fazendeiro, ele tem um rancho, né? Então ele planta, ou seja, é um cara que trabalha um tanto, né? Fez a casa dele, fez a oficina dele, né? Então é um profissional admirável. Então ele nos disse, né, que ele trabalha mais de 50 anos, ele sustentou e sustenta a família dele. Ele e a esposa tiveram 5 filhos, né? Então ele foi capaz de prover para a família dele, né? Nesse período trabalhando como marceneiro, né? E agora os filhos todos já deixaram a casa, só está ele e a esposa, e ele foi capaz também, né, como ele disse, de construir uma oficina da qual ele gosta muito, que ele vai mostrar para a gente. Ok, Garrett, go ahead.
Fernando, you added things.
Are you studying Portuguese? Maybe. Okay, but well, everything that I added is not. Well, I did the translation. I think I didn't add anything from what you said. Okay.
Let me see if I can turn this around.
Good.
I'll walk through my shop a little bit. So it's a brick building, which is very unusual for here because we have so much wood. The floor is wood, the walls are wood and plaster. So this is my old jointer for flattening stock.
Okay. Do you mind telling me the brand of it?
It doesn't really have a brand. It's what we call a pattern maker's jointer. It has extra things that it used to do. This used to be for a shaper, and it used to have a table saw that could go on there. It's just a general kind of a tool, like it could do many tasks. It's not
okay. Sorry, maybe my question was not perfect. What was the manufacturer of it?
Well, there isn't any. I mean, the person that sold it is there. It says Field. The head is a Crescent head. You know the Crescent Machine Company. So that's all I can tell you. I don't know who made it, and it was probably made around 1900. And this is my big bandsaw.
Okay.
This is a Northfield. This is a saw they probably still make. It's about 3/4 of a meter. The opening.
Okay. Wow.
And by the way, this door is about 1 meter wide.
Wow.
So that's really nice to bring things in and out. Okay. And then let me turn some lights on here. And then down here, I have a very nice machine that I made. I didn't expect we would be doing this, but this is a mortising machine. It's got a table that goes right or left.
Okay.
And then in and out. So you can put a bit in there and do any kind of mortises very, very cleanly, very, very quickly.
Okay. Wonderful machine. Did you use a router?
Yeah, it uses a router. That's the machine. That's the motor. Okay. And then I've got a little turning lathe. I don't use it a lot, but I do use it. And then you see some turnings ahead above there, that things I've made and stuff. And then this is, unfortunately, it's covered up. It's a little machinist lathe for doing, more machinist type work.
Okay.
It's a little dusty right now, but it's protected. Okay. And then I've got many, many, many drawers in the shop, filled with all kinds of. I'll show you the inlay drawer. Well, there's many inlay drawers, but this is one of them. This is all inlay materials and shell and stones and all kinds of things that I, collect and use for different things. You can see some abalone here and that kind of thing.
Ok. Do you mind if I do some translation now?
No, go.
Ok. Então, pessoal, ele mostrou aí, né, a oficina dele primeiro, ele mostrou a desempenadeira, né, me pareceu uma Wadkin, mas depois ele me falou a marca que ele via ali era uma Field, né, e a serra de fita, né, que tem uma baita abertura atrás. Ele citou o nome, eu não me lembro agora o nome, mas é o nome que eu conheço, então é uma máquina tradicional. Ele acha que ela ainda é fabricada, né? Uma furadeira horizontal, né, que ele mesmo fabricou, né? Então ele pendurou ali na máquina uma tupia, né? E para fazer essa furadeira horizontal, que tem, como toda furadeira horizontal, um deslocamento da mesa e da própria ferramenta de usinagem, né? E ele mostrou também tornos, né? Um torno para madeira, um torno para metal, e naquela gaveta, né? Ele abriu uma gaveta e mostrou uma série de materiais que ele usa para fazer os inlays, né? As incrustações. Sorry, Garrett, go ahead.
Okay, so these are my two major machines. This is a planer, a big planer,
Okay.
about a half a meter wide.
Wow.
And it's got a nice feature. I can grind the knives right in the head here. That moves back and forth, and I can sharpen it right without taking the knives out. And then I've got this English saw, which is a very, very nice saw.
Okay.
And
sorry, go ahead.
oh, you can. So it's a Wadkin Green, which is a name probably that it's an old name.
Man, Wadkin is I have already seen some machines from them. They are wonderful. Yeah. Very good stuff.
They are.
Yep.
And then I have tools and drawers and all full with different things. And then I've got an office upstairs. Now we're starting to heat. Well, we've been heating for about a month. And so I keep that covered up. But this is my heat source. It's a big wood stove, basically.
Okay. So
and I made a fire. I made a fire just before when I came home, and you can see it's in there. It's almost done.
Okay. So may I do some translation now?
Yes, do.
Ok. Então ele mostrou, pessoal, o desengrosso, né, com a boca de 50, a serra circular, que é uma Wadkin, é uma marca inglesa maravilhosa. As máquinas são assim incríveis. Existe um perfil no Instagram, Jack English, né, que o cara tem umas máquinas da Wadkin maravilhosas, né? E ele mostrou também, né, a parte de cima, né, quer dizer, ele mostrou o acesso para o escritório dele, né? E também e lá eles usam muito isso, né, o aquecimento para você baixar a sua conta de energia. Você cuida do seu aquecimento tendo aquecedores, né, a madeira, né, é o caso que ele mostrou para a gente. Go ahead, Garrett.
So this is some of the hand tools I use every day. Not every day, but many days. Saws and chisels and spoke shaves and then these are some special tools here that I use a lot that are some English tools and Lee Nielsen's and things. And then in this little cabinet are special little English tools. I'll show you.
Okay.
There's some beautiful little tools in here, made by a man in Canada. And this is a Bill Carter, a guy that makes these little planes as well. Very, very beautiful little boxwood planes. Yeah, these are all, most of them are handmade. This one's not, but most of them are handmade. And I've gotten to know the makers and traded or whatever.
Okay.
And then, as you could imagine, I use some router bits and that kind of thing.
Ok. Então, ele mostrou aí, pessoal, um armário, aliás, vários armários de ferramentas, né? Inclusive, eu vi ali várias goivetas, né? Eu acredito que ele as tenha feito. Garrett, I saw
Yes.
a lot of shoulder planes or something similar. Now you
Yes.
are showing them now. Have you yourself done them?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No. I have the only wood planes I've made are wooden planes,
Mm-hmm.
and
I mean, but these ones here, have you done them?
no.
Okay.
But I have made a lot of tools over the years. This is one that I made. This is a marking gauge with
Okay.
a single pin or two pins, and it moves with a little thumb screw.
Uh-huh.
And I'll
Good.
make planes, but I don't have any planes that I've made right here. They're somewhere else. They're in
Okay.
another drawer.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, those. I mean, I like metal tools a lot because they stay in shape and all that. And on my bench are also all my day-to-day tools. Beautiful little caliper I use a lot for
Uh-huh.
measuring things. It's a rule as well as it's a caliper. Sorry, I only have one hand here. Here, let me put this here, and then let me turn it around, and then you can see, I think, everything on my bench.
Good.
Right? Is that? No, that
Okay.
doesn't. That's not right. Sorry. This is right. I had it right before.
Good.
There we go.
Yes.
I don't have any camera assistant here.
Yeah, relax. No problem. Okay. So let me do some translation now.
Uh-oh, what happened
Então,
here?
I really don't know. Take your time. Good. You are back. Now you're not back.
Okay, I think I'm covering
Now
up my.
you're. Yeah, you are. I see something in front of the lenses.
Oh, there. Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. Sorry. I got it.
Good.
I'll get it right. Normally,
Now, good. Now we are
normally I
seeing
set up.
your bench.
So this is
Yeah.
a beautiful rule with a caliper end. I use that a lot.
Okay.
And then you can see at the other end of my bench, I've got some planes that are used every day, some block planes and things. But this is where I work. I've got beautiful light coming in these big windows. Of course, it's dark here now because we have very short days right now.
Yeah.
You have the long days down there in Brazil. We have the short days up here now.
Yeah.
But ours days about 9 hours long, which is really short, but we get by. So should I start on the inlay, or do you want to translate any more?
I'm gonna do the translation, okay?
Okay.
Então, pessoal, ele mostrou lá os armários, né, com ferramentas, né? Então, basicamente, ele mostrou aquele armário em que havia uma série de goivetas, né, de madeira que eu achei que ele tinha feito, mas na realidade não foi. Ele deve tê-las adquirido de alguém, né? Mostrou um outro armário de parede com planas e um armário, né, decorado, inclusive com inlay, né, com a machetaria, em que há uma série de ferramentas inglesas, né? Então, eu acredito que sejam ferramentas pelas quais ele tem algum apreço, a maioria delas ferramentas feitas à mão que eu digo, né, não por um processo industrial, à exceção de uma que ele mostrou, né? Então, ele parece ter grande apreço por elas. E aí, a bancada dele, né, com as ferramentas que ele usa mais frequentemente no dia a dia, né? Agora ele vai começar a falar sobre inlay, né? Garrett, please go ahead.
Okay, so inlay is essentially, this is a good example of inlay. I've taken a wood out of a groove. I've cut a groove, and then I've put in a very fine piece of wood into the groove that I created. That is one way to do inlay, but that's what inlay is all about. This happens to be an outlining kind of line to this leg. It started out as our style we call the federal style, but I do that kind of outlining with lots of other materials as well. Here's more. Here's an outline, or not a line on that. That's little pieces of ebony and holly. I'm sorry the light is not incredible. It's a little glary. And then this is a little really fine line of abalone. Hard to read probably, but that is sparkles like incredibly. Can you see how sparkly it is? That is really amazing stuff. It's really hard to do. If I get time, I'd like to show a little bit of doing shell. But these are all lines that just outline something. And here's a different kind of thing. That's not really inlay so much, but it's the same idea. And here's
Okay,
just okay.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
This is just one last line. This is just a different kind of shell line that just could go along an edge, but now it's just sort of just out there in space. And this is all inlay. All this stuff is inlay. Putting it into the surface. You cut away the surface and you put wood back in.
Okay. Well, so if we had to define what an inlay is, so you remove wood from a piece of wood and you fill it with wood or other materials. Is that correct?
Yes, it could be other materials. There's something that very old is using sulfur. They melt sulfur. You know sulfur? You probably do.
Yeah.
They melt sulfur and you get a yellow line. But most of the time I'm using wood or those sorts of materials. There's metal. I use metal. Here's a line with metal, hard to read, but that's a lead that shines up beautifully, and it's very oxidized now, but that's quite nice. I've used silver, and here's a little piece of silver I just noticed right here. It's hard to read, but there's a little piece of silver inlaid there. I've used gold, but not much. But mostly it's wood because that's the easiest for me to manipulate.
Okay, and the difference between an inlay and marquetry?
Okay, marquetry is when you take wood and you make a pattern of various kinds of things, a picture often, and then you put it into the surface. So this could be a marquetry panel put into the surface, but it's not. It's a solid piece of wood that I'm putting in. So the marquetry is one way, and there's another one called intarsia. And intarsia is where you're taking away a lot of the background wood and putting in other pieces, again, pictorial, and it's often three-dimensional. Intarsia, it's got much more dimension to it. It's sculpted. But inlay is taking away the wood, and there's two ways that we do it, or two ways that I do it. And by the way, I am self-taught. I wanted to do it way back, and probably 40 years ago when I first started thinking about it. And I tried to figure out how to do it. There's no books about it. Nobody had any sort of web to look up and that kind of thing. So I had to sort of figure it out. And I do it two different ways. I'm either taking away the wood and putting wood back in, or I'm making the piece, putting it on the surface, scribing around it, taking away the wood and putting the piece in. So sometimes you make the piece first, sometimes you make the piece second.
Ok. So I'll do some translation, ok? Então, pessoal, ele mostrou aí alguns exemplos de inlay, e aí eu perguntei para ele, né, como é que a gente poderia definir, né, o que é inlay. Então, você faz a remoção de madeira, de uma peça de madeira, né, você remove aquela primeira peça que ele mostrou, né, como se fosse uma perna de uma mesa, né, com dois filetes nas laterais, né, inclusive lá eles têm uma forma, eu não sei se nós temos aqui no Brasil a mesma forma de estruturar conhecimento como eles têm, mas ele falou, esse tipo de decoração aqui é chamado de federal, né, que é um estilo de construção e de decoração de móveis nos Estados Unidos. Se eu não me engano, remonta a século 18 ou 19, né? Mas então você remove madeira e você preenche esse local removido. E aí você pode preencher com madeira, com metal, com conchas, né? Com madrepérola e inclusive ele contou que já viu gente fazendo inlay, fazendo o preenchimento com enxofre, né? Por causa da cor amarela do enxofre, né? E ele disse que ele aprendeu a fazer inlay sozinho, né? Ele não encontrava livros na época que ele resolveu começar a fazer, e que ele faz o inlay de duas formas. Ou ele remove o material e depois cuida do preenchimento, né, de fazer o que vai preencher a área em que o material foi removido, ou então ele cria primeiro o que vai preencher e aí usa esta forma criada como um gabarito para fazer uma inscrição, né, uma marcação na região em que aquela peça criada vai ser inserida, e ele faz a remoção do material e a inserção. Ok, Garrett?
So an important concept here is that you're doing contrasting woods too, so that there's a strong, it pops, that you can see it. You can't, like if you put walnut into cherry, over time, it's not going to look like much. The colors get the same. So these are all just ways to, I'm just experimenting here. I was probably demonstrating or something like that. So I'm just, playing with things, but these are all kinds of things I might use. So let me just explain, like, why do you do this? Well, there's a little panel with satin wood and ebony and holly. That has a nice contrast. But I sign my name in Morse code often in those panels because I can do it.
Okay.
Here's another one. This is not quite Morse code, but you can get the idea that there's a lot of movement going on in here. The pieces change.
Okay.
It's subtle. It's subtle.
Okay. Let me do some translation here, ok?
Ok.
Então ele comentou agora, pessoal, da importância de você usar madeiras que apresentem contraste. Ele falou, se eu tiver um pedaço de maple, por exemplo, né? O maple corresponde. Maple é o. Como é que chama em português? Maple. Não. Maple é. Eu não vou me lembrar o nome agora. No, yeah, sorry. I'm trying to find the Portuguese, the Brazilian Portuguese word for maple. I don't remember now. Later I'm gonna get it. Então, bordo, isso, bordo, né? Então, ele falou, se você botar a cerejeira americana e o bordo, fazer um inlay de um na outra, ao longo do tempo vai perder, porque você não vai ter o contraste. Então, ele sempre procura materiais que contrastem, né, que mantenham esse contraste ao longo do tempo, para que o inlay exerça a sua função. E ele mostrou ali, pessoal, por exemplo, essa perna que está deitada aí, a gente tem duas pernas, né? Na perna que está mais distante da gente, né, que tem esse inlay de uma cor mais clara, ele colocou o nome dele em código Morse, né? Então, ele fez um inlay lá que em código Morse é o nome dele. Na outra peça, quando a gente olha essa que está mais próxima da gente aqui, quando a gente olha a peça, a gente vê uns movimentos, né, umas coisas sutis, né, delicadas de movimento no inlay que foi preparado. Go ahead, Garrett, please.
So, why do we do inlays? Obviously, they can be decorative. They can attract your attention. It can be if you put something like this oval in the center of a drawer. This is only half a drawer, obviously. If you put this right in the center of a drawer, then it's going to bring a lot of attention to it. This is birch, by the way. Birke in German. I don't know what it is in Portuguese, but birch. Okay? A certain kind of birch. But it's going to draw your attention to this. And that's certainly a strong reason to have it. But I also use them for other reasons. Here is a leg. And this inlay banding here, don't ignore this. This is just a sample I was doing of a silver toe. But this is a good transition. It's where the leg starts to taper to a toe. And here's another one. It's a good example of it. It's a transition. And it's a nice place to stop your string inlay as well. The string inlay comes down. It's a lot easier to stop it here than to turn the corner and go back up again. Plus the fact, I think it gives it a nice decorative banding. So it's a way to create focus. It's a way to where transitions happen. And it's also a place where you can high jointery. I can't show you a good example of that, but there's situations where I've done inlay where I'm like a bead like this. It's not really inlay, but a bead like this can easily be a transition as well, but it can hide a joint between two parts, and it's less obvious that there's a joint there because you're seeing the bead, you're not seeing the joint. So you're distracting the eye, you might say. That's another reason for inlay. It could distract the eye to look at what you want to look at and not what the eye might be searching for.
Oh, good, good. Now I got the other objective. May I do the translation now?
Yes, go.
Yes? Ok. Então, antes da gente começar a transmissão, pessoal, estava conversando com o Garrett e eu tinha a impressão que a única função do inlay era a função decorativa, né? E agora, né, ele acrescentou, né, que muitas vezes você esconde um encaixe embaixo de um inlay, tá? Então, por exemplo, ele mostrou ali uma região, né, que tem um inlay de uma peça mais escura, né, uma peça preta, e embaixo tem duas peças se juntando. Então, você pode esconder um encaixe de duas peças, né, recobrindo esse encaixe com um inlay. Então, a pessoa esperaria ver ali o encaixe, mas não vê porque esse encaixe foi coberto, foi disfarçado pelo inlay, pelo uso do inlay. Okay, Garrett, go ahead.
So this is banding. This is pieces of wood put together in long strips or not so long strips. And I can talk about doing that maybe on Saturday, but that's a specialty. You know, that's a very, very difficult specialty. This and this and this all have the same beginning, but yet they end up completely different.
Good, wonderful, wonderful.
So, but you can imagine that if you have these bandings, that it could be in such a place on a piece of furniture that there could be a joint behind them or something like that. Not that I use that, but it's a way to create focus and interest in something. You know, it could be one of these bandings could easily go around this drawer, and it might be very, very interesting. It could be dynamic, it might be too much. But there's plenty of times too where the inlay creates a pattern across the surface. So, certainly the Federal style. There's squares, there's ovals, there's all kinds of panels and things like that that create a whole pattern, a whole fabric, you might say, on the surface of inlay.
And did you yourself produce all these inlays that you have just shown us?
Yes, all of them.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And are you going to show us the ideas about how can we do it on next Saturday?
I will. What I'm mostly going to show you is how to do the basic inlays of what we call string inlay.
Okay.
This sort of line, a very, very fine line. How do you do that?
Okay.
How do you do it across a curve? Like this is a piece of ebony and holly across a curve.
Okay.
And I will talk about how to do a surface inlay like one of these.
Okay.
One of these things. And we can talk about, if there's interest, how to do these sorts of things that are done with a compass. Okay. You can imagine those are like pencil lines with a compass, but those are actually pieces of inlay. Those are very difficult to do. We can talk about a panel. That's a very useful thing to do. I love panels. And we can talk about bandings. We can go as far as we can with the time allowed.
Yeah, just give us an idea. How can we do it? Yeah, and
it's a lot.
Oh, good.
It's a lot, but I can be prepared, and we can move right along. We don't have to stop and get anything. It can be all right here, and I can show you how we would just go right about it.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And we'll make some tools, Fernando, too. All the tools that you need are right in here. And mostly what we do is we make little cutters. These are all little cutters for doing different kinds of work. And this is the basic cutter that we're going to use, one like this right here. We got a piece of white paper. This is the basic cutter that we're going to be using.
Okay.
That one right here, that little square tip. We're going to make those. We're going to make actually two of these. This bead is very, very useful in a little square cutter. This does all the work, that little cutter.
Okay.
But it has to be made a certain way. And that gets held in a piece of wood and just locked into place.
Okay.
And now you have a little cutter as a tool ready to go to cut string inlay.
So woodworkers must be metal workers too.
Yeah, but it's not difficult. It's just a filing, and then you do some sharpening. And we have to use steel that's the proper kind. It's not like chisel. It's not soft. It's a spring temper. It's like a piece of scraper blade.
Good. Okay. So let me do some translation now.
Okay.
Good. Thanks. Então, pessoal, ele mostrou aí, né, todos esses desenhos, todos esses padrões que vocês viram, inclusive aquelas fitas que estão todas alinhadas numa peça, todas elas foram produzidas pelo Garrett. Então, vocês imaginem a variedade de desenhos, de decorações que a gente pode adicionar a uma peça, né, se a gente tiver esse conhecimento, né? E ele mostrou aí, ó, ele falou, tudo que precisa para fazer está naquela caixinha que ele abriu, e aí ele está mostrando uma das ferramentas que ele preparou para fazer o inlay. Então, na aula de sábado, ele vai falar sobre a produção de inlays e também sobre a produção das ferramentas, porque a gente não consegue fazer os inlays sem as ferramentas apropriadas. Ok, Garrett, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to just answer questions, I think, right?
Oh, good. I think we are good at this moment for the questions, okay? Let me see them here. Então, pessoal, vou agora começar a percorrer as perguntas aqui, né? Fazer as perguntas a ele e respondê-las. E tem outra aqui, ó. Botar aqui o enxergador, né? Porque senão... Pessoal, aliás, desculpem aqui a entrada corrida. Muito obrigado pela presença de vocês, tá? Muitíssimo obrigado. É sempre um prazer, né, e uma honra contar com a presença de vocês aqui, tá? Well, we have a Mr. Cabral from Brazil. He is asking you about the two books that you wrote. Okay, what were the main reasons for writing them, and what were the difficulties that you find on writing them?
The fine woodworking Taunton Press came to me and asked me to write a book, and or about the tools, because I was definitely getting known for being a user of planes and that kind of thing. So I decided I would try, and it was very long. It took over a year and a lot of investigations. What were the difficulties? The difficulties were just writing day after day, just to write that many words. Most people don't want to read books that long anymore. They want to do, Taunton Press wants to do videos and that kind of thing. So I doubt a book like that would be published again. But it was just the difficulty too of getting all the tools. We had to go to England. We went to Canada. We went to different parts of the USA where there were some of these rare tools that I wanted to show, and not so rare tools, some of them as well. A lot of the non-rare tools are mine. But it's just the difficulty of, working at it, week after week after week. And I never considered myself a writer, but I always have written. So that wasn't so hard, but it was hard to sort of put it all together in a concise way.
Ok. Então, pessoal, né, a pergunta do Cabral sobre os dois livros que o Garret Hack escreveu, a motivação. Bem, ele foi contratado pela Taunton para escrever os livros, né? A Taunton é uma editora que publica a Fine Woodworking, já publicou uma série de livros de marcenaria. Quando eu decidi me tornar marceneiro em 2009, eu comprei 80 livros da Taunton, né? E foi um dos melhores investimentos que eu já fiz na minha vida, né? Pelos 80 livros, eu paguei, acho que cerca de $400, qualquer coisa assim. Então foi um baita negócio, eu tive um baita desconto também, né? Porque não tem imposto, né? E a coisa mais difícil que o Garrett encontrou foi o trabalho, né? O livro de planas, por exemplo, que ele citou, né? Pesquisar todas essas ferramentas. Eles estiveram nos Estados Unidos, aliás, pelos Estados Unidos, eles viajaram, Canadá, Inglaterra, para ir atrás de informações sobre essas ferramentas. Ele falou que ele não é um escritor, né? Mas ele desempenhou a tarefa, e a Taunton procurou porque ele ficou conhecido como uma pessoa que usava ferramentas manuais, né? Então daí a procura da Taunton. Então essa tarefa de juntar todas as informações e o trabalho no dia a dia, né, é que ele considerou assim, digamos, a parte difícil do trabalho, né? Um, the same Mr. Cabral has another question about Brazilian woods. If you have already had the chance of using them, if you remember the name of them, if by chance you used them, and what did you think about these woods?
You know, I don't know what woods I've used that come from Brazil other than Brazilian rosewood.
Uh-huh.
I don't, you know, we get wood, but it doesn't know. I don't use a lot of exotic wood. I try not to. I use ebony. I use some rosewoods, satinwood. But most of the time, I don't know where they come from exactly because they're ones that are probably, you know, they're quite old. The pieces that I'm getting. I'm getting them from people that are retiring or whatever. But I would say you probably have some excellent woods. I don't know, but I bet you do. You probably have the right kind of climate. I have to say, in Australia, they have a lot of wood, but it was all so incredibly difficult to work. Every one of it, every species was incredible to work, really incredible, difficult to work.
Well, here in Brazil, I would say it's almost the same, yeah, because we have a lot of well, it's not I would call them hardwoods, but not
Yes.
because the same kind of classification that you had, but because they are heavy and
Yes.
hard, and the
Yes.
grain the grain doesn't know where it goes to. You know,
Yeah.
it goes everywhere.
Yeah.
So they are very difficult to work with. But
Yeah.
at the same time, we have some wonderful species here, like imbuya, for
Yeah.
instance,
I
and the
don't know that.
Brazilian.
I know the name. I know the name. That's all.
Man, it's wonderful. It's
Yeah.
a classy wood, you know.
Yeah.
We have the Brazilian pine, yeah. Uh, that's wonderful to work with. We have the Brazilian mahogany, very good to work with too. We
Yeah.
have freijó. We have the Brazilian cedar, the
Yeah.
Brazilian rose cedar. All of them wonderful woods for woodworking. At
Yeah.
the same time, we have tamarindo, jatoba. Maybe you heard about jatoba.
Yes, I do.
Very hard, very difficult to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Okay.
about Ite? How about Ite? Yeah.
Ipe
Yeah.
is hard as a stone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And difficult to work with too. Yeah.
And Garapa?
Garapa, you know garapa. Oh, garapa means two things in Portuguese, in Brazilian Portuguese. It means the wood that's called garapa or garapeira. It's used mainly for the structure for the roof, you know.
Yeah.
And garapa is also the name that we use for the sugarcane juice. When we
Okay.
squeeze the sugarcane, the juice is called garapa. Yeah.
Here's some Garapa right here.
Oh man. So you have Brazilian wood.
I
Yeah.
was making some windowsills for an outdoor thing, a court. And yeah, it's very hard to work.
Yeah. It bends by itself. It's something tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we are lucky. We are lucky here that we have beautiful hardwoods. Beautiful cherry. You know, this is our cherry. It can be just beautiful, straight grained, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's beautiful grain.
Yeah, yeah.
We have birch and maple and all, what else is really good? Pine. We have a native pine that's very, very good. Stable and wide, and just a beautiful color and easy to work.
Uh-huh.
I use that for drawer bottoms.
For drawer bottoms?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a minute, I'm gonna translate it. Então, Cabral, ele só conhecia a Brazilian Rosewood, oh meu Deus, jacarandá da Bahia, né? E só que ele mostrou aí um pedaço de garapeira, né? Que ele está usando para fazer as peças de janela e tal. E ele falou que lá ele tem as madeiras que ele tem para trabalhar lá são muito boas. Ele tem bordo, bétula, pinho e a cerejeira americana. São todas madeiras de grão, fibras muito estáveis, muito comportadas, então divertidas para trabalhar, né?
So I've been harvesting my own woods for over 40 years. A lot of the wood that I use comes out of our forest.
Ok. Bem, ele tem usado, ele mesmo tem colhido as madeiras que ele usa de florestas próximas a ele. Garrett, Raphael is asking what's the difference between inlay and marquetry?
Marquetry relies on a support structure, like plywood or solid wood, that it is applied to.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
And
I got it.
Okay.
Ok. Então, qual é a diferença, pessoal, de marchetaria e do inlay? Na marchetaria, você faz uma composição com folha e você precisa de um substrato para suportar. Pode ser compensado, pode ser MDF, né, por exemplo, mas depende de um substrato para suportar. No inlay, você usa uma peça de madeira para fazer a inserção de outras peças de madeira ou outros materiais. Essa é a diferença do que eles chamam de marquetry, né, para o inlay, ok? E isso responde as perguntas do Rafael e do Luiz Fernando. E também do Vinícius. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting, but this could be a marquetry panel inlaid into the solid surface.
Oh, good. I got it.
Okay.
Então,
so
aí, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It's just it's supported by the background wood in this case. But a lot of times marquetry is pictorial. It's some design, it's an artistic design or whatever, and it relies on a inert background as much as possible, pine or plywood or something that it's adhered to and supports it, because it's thin, it's only veneer.
You can use, for instance, MDF2 as a base for gluing the veneer.
You can. I don't use MDF, so I can't speak of it.
Okay. Here we use, because it's difficult to get good plywood here. You know, flat plywood.
I would make my own material to attach it to if I were doing that.
Ok. Então, a diferença, pessoal, efetivamente, é que no que é chamado de marquetry, né, ou marchetaria lá, você faz um desenho com folhas, né? E ele falou muitas vezes desenhos pictóricos. Quando ele diz desenho pictórico, ele está se referindo àquelas imagens com folhas, com pássaros e assim por diante. E você tem sempre uma base, né, de compensado, onde você coloca esse desenho feito com folhas de madeira, tá? Ele disse que no caso da peça que ele mostrou, aquela região retangular, você poderia fazer eventualmente com folha de madeira. Então aí você teria uma marchetaria inserida numa peça de madeira, seria um inlay, né? Mas tipicamente ele não costuma usar folha, ele costuma usar o material mais espesso, tá? E daí a diferença entre os dois, ok? Garrett, Rudney Miola asks you what if the tool that you showed us is a tool that can be used for making a groove and inserting like a metal wire or something like it.
Metal, shell, plastic, if you were so inclined, wood, anything you can get into that groove. And you make it to fit certain material if you want to buy the material beforehand. Like if you have shell and you have it 1 millimeter wide or something, you could I don't know if you can buy 1 millimeter wide, but you could get it, make a cutter to fit that. But I usually make the cutter and then make the material fit it.
Ok.
I plane the wood to the thickness that it fits it.
Ok. Então, pessoal, então Rudney, ele faz a ferramenta, né, para para inserção do material. Então, aquela ferramenta que ele mostrou, por exemplo, é um caso, e ele diz que ele primeiro faz a ferramenta e depois ele faz o material que vai ser inserido, né? O que faz sentido porque, assim como a gente aqui, a gente primeiro faz a fêmea e depois o macho para fazer a inserção, né? Então é dessa forma que é construído. Faz a ferramenta para criar a fêmea e aí faz a peça que vai ser o macho para ser inserida ali.
So the cutters that I have, Fernando, some
Sorry,
of the cutters I have are quite big in terms of the size of the inlay.
Okay.
Tooth. You know, there's one at the top on the right and one at the bottom on the left, or whatever it is for you on your screen. And they're different in terms of one's much finer than the other. And then I had one here that I was showing while you were talking that's really fine. Look how fine this one is. Very, very, very fine. Okay?
Okay, good, good.
That's probably 0.5 millimeter or something in that range.
Perfect. Ok. Então, pessoal, ele está mostrando duas ferramentas aí, uma com a aresta de corte mais larga, outra menor, né? Mas ele colocou aquela folha para a gente poder ver o perfil da ferramenta de corte, né? Mas é sempre a produção de uma ferramenta dessa, e a segunda ferramenta que ele mostrou tinha cerca, segundo ele, de 0,5 milímetro, né, de largura, né? Mas ele faz a ferramenta e depois faz a peça macho para inserção no canal que foi gerado, tá?
It is 0.5 millimeter. That
Sorry,
little one,
half,
0.5 millimeter.
Então a ferramenta com 5 milímetros. Júlio Stelmar, he's asking you if you use oak in your work.
It's interesting. We have very, very good oak that grows here. Very straight, clear trees. Red oak, which is not useful for barrels or it's different. And it's I can't tell you how good it is, but I don't use it a lot. I would say I use it for structural parts like drawer runners, or I made some chairs out of it. I think that's a very, very good use for steam bent it and made chairs out of it. But okay. I don't use a lot of oak. It's a wood that doesn't appeal to me as much because it's kind of coarse.
Ok. Bem, eles têm lá um carvalho de muito boa qualidade na região, carvalho vermelho, né, que não serve para construção de barris, e ele falou que é uma madeira que não tem um apelo muito grande para ele, porque parece para ele uma madeira meio grosseira, o desenho dela. Ele usa para fazer corrediças, né, de gavetas, né, e ele já fez algumas cadeiras também usando o carvalho. Márcio is asking you if you have already used or if you approve staining the wood. I mean, changing the color, using something to change the color of the wood. Okay, if you like this technique, or if you use it, or if you approve it. Okay, for instance, suppose you want to do an inlay, and in order to get a more contrast, a stronger contrast, you change the color, for instance, of one piece or the other.
Well, that's tricky. I'll tell you why. Because as soon as you start putting stain on something, it might go places that you don't want, and it makes,
Yeah.
But what I always am looking for is to keep the white. You know holly? Is that a wood that you're familiar with?
Yeah, by the name, but I have never seen it. Okay, I know the name.
Okay, but you must have other woods that stay quite white.
Yeah, here in Brazil we have, for instance, we have a wood that's named the marfim, okay, and it's almost white. We have cacheta, that's very soft but white too. Yeah,
Okay.
and
Okay.
it's very clear along the time.
Okay. So the problem is that they will, the color, if you put color on something after you've inlaid it, then it's not predictable.
Okay.
And if you do it beforehand, that's okay. But then when you level the inlay,
So,
which
yeah.
you can do with, extreme care, but you're still going to probably take away some of the wood on the background.
Yeah.
If I were to plane this leg, which I would do after I've got the inlay in, I'm going to probably cut into the background wood a little bit. So I don't do a lot of that staining, but I do something called glazing, which is where I use the shellac and I put color in the shellac, and I can make woods look older or more oxidized. And I do that. Or you can make walnut have more of a golden, not a warmer color. So I would say I use color, but I use it as a glaze of color. I use it on top of the surface as a finish, not to try and to make certain things darker or I mean, all the finishes make things darker. I can show you an example of what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you. It's right next to where
Yeah. Well, if it's not bothering you,
I can show you. I have some samples.
Então, Márcio, ele não aprova a questão do tingimento, porque ele diz o seguinte: a gente nunca sabe o que vai acontecer, tá? Então você nunca sabe o que vai resultar aquela cor depois, e se você tingiu e você vai usinar a peça, aí você acaba tirando o tingimento, tirando a área de tingimento e chegando na madeira, na cor original que ela tem. Sorry, go ahead.
So this is not a great piece of walnut.
Okay.
But look how nice and golden it can look.
Okay.
With a little bit of darker, redder finish, seed lac, what I call it. And then this is examples of how some color makes bird's eye maple pop up. There's a little bit of color on that. This is what it looks like without the color. This is what it looks like with the color. Not very much color, but there's some. And then this is the same thing. This piece of curly maple. Look how that has got much nicer color. That's the back, and this is the front. It's not a lot of color, but there's some in there, and it makes the piece look much more aged.
But you are adding the color to shellac.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, right into the shellac. Here's another piece of birch that it.
Oh man, wonderful.
Yeah, this is my favorite wood, but the most difficult to work.
Okay. So let me do the translation.
Okay.
Então pessoal, o que ele faz? Ele usa eventualmente corantes, ele adiciona um pouco na goma laca para dar uma impressão, para tornar a cor um pouco mais quente, ou então para envelhecer a peça. Então ele mostrou aí alguns exemplos, né? Então ele mostrou a madeira crua e mostrou madeira com esse acabamento de goma laca enriquecida com corante para mostrar essa diferença, tá?
Here's another, Fernando. Here's another one. This it almost looks a little bit fake to me, especially in this, artificial light.
Okay.
But this is what it looks like without, and this is what it looks like with. So that's the way I would use the color.
Okay.
But you have to be very, very careful when you do it with inlay. You can do it with ebony, you can do it with all the darks, but you can't do it when you have any light lines.
Ok. Então, eventualmente, você consegue fazer algum efeito para peças escuras, mas para peças onde você tem madeira clara é um problema. Ele mostrou aí uma peça em que você tem a beleza da peça enriquecida com a aplicação do corante na goma laca, tá? For using metal, I mean, when using metal with doing the inlay, what type of glue do you use?
Most of the time when I'm doing metal, I don't use any glue at all.
Oh, just by pressing the metal
Yeah.
against the groove.
Yes.
Okay.
Shellac probably is as good as anything. So I would say after I get the metal in, I might coat it with some shellac and let that get into any of the little cracks that it can, and that will help hold it. But I don't think that there's really much glue that you can use that really works that great. I mean, epoxy is something I don't want to get involved with because then it's going to change the wood. You know, you get epoxy on the wood, it starts to look like you've got glue on there. The Gorilla type glues probably would work, but I don't like the foaming kind. You have Gorilla glue in Brazil?
Yeah, we have it.
Yeah, I use the clear Gorilla glue sometimes that doesn't foam. That's quite good, but not for metal inlay. Most of the time, metal, it gets pressed in. You know, you make a groove and you press it in, and you do something where if this is the piece of metal, you drop a chisel on it so that you create like little teeth. And then when you turn it upside down and get into the groove, those little teeth grab.
Oh, good, good. Então, Márcio, ele não usa cola, né? O que que ele faz? Ele falou aí, né? Você pega a peça de metal, inverte, bate com um formão, lógico que é um formão, né? Um formão caranguejeiro, e aí você cria uma espécie de uns dentinhos. Quando você crava a peça, vira e crava, ele fica preso. Às vezes, ele aplica goma laca por cima da peça de metal já incrustada, né? E ele acha que isso funciona bem, não é necessário mais nada do que isso, né? Embora ele citou algumas colas como a Gorilla Glue, mas não necessariamente ele gosta de usar, porque tem uma versão do Gorilla Glue que ela vira uma espécie de espuma, né?
There's that lead. It's hard to read probably because the zoom isn't great, but this is totally flush and flat. It's never moved.
Ok. Aí, pessoal, tem um pedaço de inlay feito com chumbo, tá? E tá lá, e tá quietinho, isso sem cola, tá?
Now, Fernando, one of the things we'll talk about is that you can't just put inlay anywhere. You got to work with the wood. The wood's going to move. You can't just go cut across a tabletop and put inlay. It just won't last.
Ok. Uma coisa importante que ele citou, pessoal, você não pode sair botando inlay em qualquer lugar, porque a madeira se move, tá? Então, o movimento da madeira... So, you must take into consideration the way the wood moves in order to apply the inlay, okay?
What is your...
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What is your moisture content at the extremes? Dry times, wet times. What are they?
It depends on the place of the country where you are.
Well, let's say where you are. What are your extremes?
Oh man, well, here I would say from well, rainy days 100%. Yeah, I mean the air, the moisture content in the air, and here in my region, I would say maybe 40%. The drier part of the year. So would be like from 8 percent, the lowest, up to, well, it can be almost
13, 14.
Oh, maybe more, 22, 25. Yeah, depending on if during the rainy season. Okay, you can have like 2 weeks raining. We had something similar here already. Yeah, 2 weeks raining. Okay, all the time. So the wood gets very, very wet. Yeah.
Okay, but that's outside or in a house?
Oh man, even, well, inside. I would say I have already had pieces of wood here with 18%. Okay, 1/8. Okay, 18% of moisture content. Okay, during a rainy season. Okay,
That's huge. Okay, so
yeah, that's huge.
the point is that wood is going to be moving, and we have to take in consideration. We go from like 7 to 9 or 10. That's all.
During the whole year?
Yeah, maybe you might go to 11 or something like that. But inside a house, it goes from 7 to 9 or 9.5.
Okay, but
that's enough. That's enough.
Yeah,
believe me.
Yeah. All right. Well, well, 18 would be, I would say, in our place here, an extreme condition.
Yeah,
okay,
that is extreme.
Normally, I would say from 6 to 8 up to 12, 13.
Okay, so it's not too far away.
No,
I made a piece of furniture that went down to South Carolina, and it went to the coast.
Okay.
And just figuring when I made it, 13%.
13%.
Yeah, that is going to live at 13%.
Okay. Well, if there are places here in Brazil near to the coast when you and you have a lot of rain there, so you have the sea and you have rain, so you have the condition to get the wood wet almost all the time.
Okay, so that means some very careful design.
Yeah. Okay, let me finish by adding this information. Okay, so because we have already 1 hour here. Okay. Então, pessoal, a gente vai nós vamos infelizmente encerrar a entrevista, porque foi o nosso combinado, né, uma entrevista de 1 hora. Um ponto que o Garrett, sim, né, quem for da comunidade, né, no dia 16 a gente vai ter uma aula exclusiva com o Garrett sobre inlay. Mas uma coisa que ele pontuou, a questão de movimentação da madeira, tá? Tá. Não, quem quiser assistir esse vídeo agora, óbvio, né, vai assistir. Mas a aula vai ser dada para os assinantes da nossa comunidade Marcenaria Fina. Vai ser no sábado, dia 16, às 14 horas, tá? Sim. Se alguém quiser fazer parte da comunidade, tá o link aí nesse vídeo, né? Basta passar a ser nosso associado, tá bom? Garrett, thanks a lot for your time. Okay, it was wonderful as usual talking to you. Okay,
Thanks.
We are always learning a lot from you. Okay, and it's marvelous. And on Saturday the 16th, we are going to be together to have your class. It will be an honor for us.
What time is it? What time is it on Saturday?
It's going to be 2 p.m. Brazilian time. It's 12 p.m. your local time. Okay. Oh, 12. I don't know if it's 12 p.m. or a.m. Lunchtime.
No, a.m. So what time is it right now? Is it 8 o'clock?
Yeah, it's 8 and 3. Okay, 2 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Huge pleasure to have you with us again.
Thank you, Evelyn.
Bye bye. Pessoal, muito obrigado pela presença de vocês, né? Espero. Oi.
Foi ser legendada, ela está sendo.
Não, a gente traduziu aqui direto, pessoal, tá? Então não vai ser legendado. Ele fazia as perguntas, eu traduzia, ele falava, eu fazia a tradução e assim por diante, tá? Foi traduzido direto por voz. Um grande abraço a todos e tchau, tchau.